Imagine pulling out your phone right now and just telling your AI, hey, find me a flight to Cancun next month under $800. Oh, and make sure the hotel is pet friendly and, within walking distance of some highly rated, authentic Mexican food.
Right, which sounds like what we already do, but...
But normally the AI just spits out a list of links, right? And then you spend the next, 3 hours cross-referencing tabs, reading dubious reviews, and just battling those stressful checkout timers.
Oh, yeah. It's exhausting.
But in this scenario, the AI doesn't just research and compare. It securely pays for the flight, it books the hotel, and just emailed you the final itinerary. You literally never lift a finger or even look at a checkout screen.
Yeah, and the industry actually calls that crossing the threshold from agentic assistance to agentic commerce. I mean, it's where the system evolves from just being, a freely sophisticated search engine into an autonomous buyer. It actually has the authority to execute transactions on your behalf.
And exploring that exact threshold is the mission of our deep dive today. We're looking at how the tech and finance worlds are permanently transforming AI from, a helpful chatbot into a digital proxy that has direct access to your wallet.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize that this is not sci-fi. Following Visa's strategic collaboration with OpenAI in June of 2026, this infrastructure is already live.
Which is wild.
It really is. We are not hypothesizing about the 2030s here. Our sources today are grounded in immediate market realities. We're unpacking this comprehensive analysis of Visa's 2026 intelligent commerce rollout and looking at that alongside current economic projections from Bain, McKinsey, and Gartner.
Right. The goal today is to really understand the underlying mechanics of how this autonomous spending is being built, how it's secured, and, how it's actually scaling up. Because if you think about it, you listening right now, you definitely know the drill. Think about the sheer friction of buying anything complex online today.
It's just a nightmare of SEO stuff, product pages.
Exactly. Scrolling through thousands of garbage pages, comparing prices across apps, dealing with that dynamic pricing that literally changes while you're looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to examine how that friction is systematically being engineered right out of the internet. But to do that, we really have to look at the massive vulnerabilities that pop up when you hand a machine the keys to your bank account.
Yeah.
Because obviously, no one is just handing a blank check to a chatbot.
No, definitely not. The gap between an AI recommending a product and an AI successfully and, more importantly, securely purchasing that product is massive.
Right.
So Visa's overarching portfolio to bridge that gap is called Visa Intelligent Commerce, or VIC. They realized pretty early on that the existing plumbing of the financial system, it was built for human beings clicking buttons,
Right, not algorithms.
Yeah, exactly. Not autonomous algorithms. You can't just feed your raw 16-digit credit card number into an AI's memory bank. The attack surface is just way too broad. So the entire architecture of how a payment is authorized had to be rebuilt from the ground up, starting with something they call advanced tokenization.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because tokenization for AI operates on a completely different structural level than just like Apple Pay or whatever.
Yeah.
When the AI goes to buy that Cancun flight, your actual sensitive card data is never even transmitted to the airline.
Never.
The system generates this highly secure cryptographic token. But unlike a standard digital wallet token, this new generation of tokens acts almost like a smart contract.
Yeah, that cryptographic payload is the defining feature here. The token is mathematically locked to a specific AI agent, a specific merchant category, and a very specific time frame.
Wait, so how granular does that get?
It's very granular. The token carries instructions that basically say, hey, this digital entity is authorized to spend a maximum of $800 only on travel-related merchants. And this authorization expires in exactly 24 hours.
So it's essentially giving a kid a mall gift card that only works at the bookstore. You're not handing them your open wallet and just crossing your fingers that they don't wander into the video game shop.
That's a great way to put it. If the parameters are breached, the money simply does not exist.
Wow.
Yeah, if the agent gets compromised by a bad actor, or, if someone intercepts that token in transit and tries to use it to buy a bunch of laptops or something, a transaction automatically fails at the network level. The token is just mathematically useless outside of its assigned hyperspecific parameter.
Which totally solves the problem of a rogue AI just draining your checking account. But let's flip the perspective for a second. If I'm the merchant, if I'm running that pet-friendly hotel in Cancun, how do I know the quote-unquote kid holding that highly restricted token is actually a legitimate assistant acting on your behalf?
Right, the merchant side is huge.
Because it could easily just be a fleet of malicious robots in a trench coat, trying to scrape my pricing data or crash my booking site under the guise of an AI shopper.
What's fascinating here is how Visa is solving that with the trusted agent protocol. They're basically positioning themselves as the cryptographic bouncer at the door of the digital economy.
The bouncer, I like that.
Yeah, the trusted agent protocol is this verification framework that establishes the digital identity of the agent before a transaction even begins.
Oh, so before the card is even loaded.
Exactly. When an AI approaches a merchant server, this protocol verifies the agent's registration. It confirms that the agent belongs to a recognized developer, like OpenAI, and that it holds a verified mandate from a human user. So it stops all that malicious bot traffic before it ever even reaches the checkout infrastructure.
And the infrastructure piece of this that really stands out in the sources is how these agents actually interact with the merchants in the first place. The deep dive materials heavily emphasize this thing called Intelligent Commerce Connect.
Yes, the APIs and CLIs.
Right, command line interfaces. To truly understand why this is so revolutionary, you have to look at how the internet is currently built. The web is entirely designed for human eyeballs. We have graphical user interfaces, colorful buttons, shopping carts.
All stuff AI doesn't need.
Exactly. AI does not have eyeballs. When an AI tries to navigate a human-designed website right now, it has to scrape the visual data, which is super slow, it breaks all the time, and it's just incredibly inefficient.
Yeah, and that's where CLIs and APIs come in. They provide these sort of machine-readable backdoors to the internet. Intelligent Commerce Connect allows developers to bypass the human interface entirely.
Meaning the AI doesn't have to literally click add to cart.
Right. A new shopping AI doesn't need to simulate a mouse click. It sends a direct command line instruction to the merchant's payment gateway via Visa's secure rails. And this standardization is what allows the whole ecosystem to scale across multiple networks, not just Visa's proprietary stuff.
And they already tested this, didn't they?
Yeah, the architecture is proven. Hundreds of these purely machine-to-machine transactions were already completed in real-world pilots back in late 2025.
Okay, so if this infrastructure essentially guarantees this zero fraud automation and completely removes the bottleneck of human interface scraping, what does that actually do to the market size? The tech rails are built, but the psychology behind why consumers actually want this is really fascinating to me.
It's all about decision fatigue.
Exactly. Based on the academic data we have from PwC and McKinsey in our stack, the driving force here isn't just a desire for shiny new tech. It's this mass behavioral response to decision fatigue.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the modern internet has just become actively hostile to human cognitive bandwidth. I mean, the sheer volume of choices, the counterfeit products, the algorithmic manipulation of search results, and just this constant barrage of hyper-targeted ads.
It's exhausting. Shopping online used to be relatively straightforward, almost fun sometimes. Now, trying to buy a mid-range toaster feels like just ending a master's thesis.
It really does.
You have to run the reviews through a fake spotting tool, check the price history on a tracker to make sure the sale isn't just an artificial markup, and then you're dodging 3 different subscription upsells at checkout.
And that exhaustion is perfectly reflected in the adoption metrics from our 2026 baseline. We are already seeing 47% of U.S. shoppers utilizing AI for pre-purchase tasks.
Wow, almost half.
Yeah, summarizing reviews, tracking price drops, discovering alternatives. During peak retail periods, AI-driven traffic to e-commerce platforms spiked by 805%. Consumers are already outsourcing the research phase because they simply do not have the time or the energy to do it manually anymore.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We've grown completely comfortable with the AI as our advisor, right? The friction points have basically forced us to rely on algorithms just to cut through the noise. Agentic commerce is just the final logical step of letting that advisor actually hit the buy button.
Exactly.
Think about a scenario like the smart fridge. But let's go bigger. Let's look at complex multimodal travel during a massive weather delay.
Oh, the worst case scenario.
Right. Your flight from Chicago gets canceled. You're stranded at the airport with 10,000 other angry people. Instead of standing in line for 3 hours or battling a crashing airline app, your AI agent instantly detects the cancellation. It cross-references available rental cars, books the last remaining hotel room near the airport, and secures a seat on a different airline for the next morning. It negotiates the prices, applies your travel insurance deductibles, and securely executes all 3 payments simultaneously using those tokenized smart contracts. You just drink your coffee and regain hours of your life.
And that right there is the core value. The value of agentic commerce is fundamentally the return of time and cognitive bandwidth. You are basically hiring a digital proxy to manage the logistical friction of modern life.
And the economic projections reflecting that value are just staggering. Bain projects that the U.S. agentic commerce market alone will reach between $300 and $500 billion by 2030.
Which is roughly 15 to 25% of all e-commerce.
A quarter of the entire online retail sector managed by machines talking to machines. And when you zoom out to the global perspective, McKinsey estimates the ultimate economic impact of these agentic systems across all sectors could reach up to $5 trillion.
Yeah, 5 trillion completely rewrites the mechanics of the global economy.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that number.
Well, Gartner's projections align with that exact trajectory. They estimate that by the end of 2026, 40% of all enterprise applications will feature embedded, specific task agents. For businesses, these agents function as virtual employees. They optimize procurement, manage inventory supply chains, execute microtransactions at a speed that, frankly, no human procurement officer could ever match.
But, and this is a big but, the academic literature consistently highlights a critical boundary here, right? The necessity of the human in the loop.
Yes, absolutely. It's the distinction between low-stakes convenience and high-stakes authorization. Your AI can autonomously navigate the logistics of a canceled flight or, buy a replacement water filter for your smart fridge. But you absolutely want it pausing to ask for biometric authorization before it executes a down payment on a new car.
Or negotiates a complex medical bill.
Exactly. The delegation of financial autonomy scales directly with the user's trust in the parameters. But as that trust scales, so does the attack surface.
Right. So what does this all mean for the average person? Because a $5 trillion market of automated spending sounds like a utopia for convenience. But giving machines financial autonomy introduces some pretty unprecedented vulnerabilities.
It does. The reality check on the autonomous wallet is that the nature of cybercrime is fundamentally shifting. It's moving away from stealing financial data toward manipulating behavioral parameters.
Because if the tokenization infrastructure makes intercepting a credit card number mathematically useless, the bad actors will just target the agent's instructions instead.
Precisely. The sources talk a lot about the rise of identity deepfakes and compromised agents. The threat isn't a hacker breaking into Visa's mainframe anymore. The threat is a bad actor quietly rewriting your AI's underlying prompts.
If someone gets access to the interface where you configure your proxy, they don't even need to steal your money directly.
Right. They can simply alter the agent's definition of a good deal or point its procurement algorithms toward merchant networks that they secretly control. Companies are rushing to implement real-time anomaly detection, monitoring the agent's behavior for sudden weird deviations from your normal patterns.
But writing robust, globally accepted security standards for autonomous behavior has to be incredibly complex.
It is essentially trying to write traffic laws for cars that can teleport. It's unprecedented.
And the vulnerabilities extend way beyond just malicious hacking. They bleed directly into ethics, privacy, and algorithmic drift. For an AI to effectively operate as your proxy, it requires a deeply intimate data profile. If I tell my agent to optimize my daily purchases, it needs access to my stylistic preferences, my exact budget thresholds, my geographical routines, and maybe even medical data, if it's buying health supplements or ergonomic equipment for me.
And that concentration of preference data introduces severe risks regarding platform bias. Without really rigid, transparent parameters, your agent's definition of the best product might slowly drift toward merchants who happen to have lucrative back-end integration deals with the AI developer.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Furthermore, an agent with too much autonomy and too much of your behavioral data could theoretically monitor your browsing patterns, detect physiological markers of stress.
Like late-night doom scrolling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it could automatically purchase an expensive luxury item it knows triggers a dopamine response for you simply because the guardrails were too loose.
So if my AI gets impulsive and automatically buys a $5,000 luxury vacation because it misread my stressed-out browsing history, who is actually on the hook for that money?
This raises an important question, and it leads straight into the most complicated legal debate in the entire 2026 landscape, the shared liability model.
Because the agent used a mathematically secure token, right?
Right.
The merchant verified the agent via the trusted agent protocol. The transaction was technically perfectly authorized, but the outcome was a massive error in subjective judgment by the AI.
Exactly. And under current regulatory frameworks, like Regulation Z in the U.S., liability for unauthorized human transactions is relatively clear. The bank or the merchant typically absorbs the cost of outright fraud. But this scenario you just described, that is not fraud.
It's a parameter failure.
Yes. The transaction was cryptographically authorized by your registered proxy. Regulators are actively struggling to split the bill between the user who set the loose parameters, the AI developer whose algorithm misinterpreted the data, and the financial network that facilitated the transfer.
And until there's a standardized legal framework for that specific type of algorithmic liability, scaling this from early adopters to the mass market carries a massive risk of consumer blowback. If users are left on the hook for thousands of dollars because their AI made a quote-unquote bad subjective choice, trust in the whole ecosystem is just going to evaporate.
Absolutely. And we can't assume a one-size-fits-all rollout either. The regulatory maturity required to handle those nuances will heavily dictate the speed of global adoption.
Right, mature markets will move fast, but the rollout is going to be heavily fragmented. The sources specifically highlight Latin America as a region facing really complex hurdles here.
Yeah, the challenges there are twofold. First, you have high levels of digital inequality. A large segment of the population might lack the consistent connectivity or the digital identity frameworks required to even register a trusted agent.
But more critically, there's severe currency volatility in several key Latin American markets.
Exactly. Automated long-term purchasing is fundamentally incompatible with a volatile currency. If an AI agent is negotiating a 6-month software contract or setting up automated monthly supply deliveries, it cannot effectively optimize those transactions if the underlying currency is rapidly devaluing.
The parameters just break down when the baseline metric of value is constantly shifting.
Right.
But the workaround mentioned in the financial analyses relies heavily on the integration of stablecoins. By bridging agentic platforms with programmable digital currencies that are pegged to stable assets, like the US dollar, AI agents can execute contracts and automate commerce without being completely derailed by local inflation spikes.
It provides the mathematical stability that algorithms require to function over time. But implementing stablecoins as the settlement layer solves the volatility issue while introducing an entirely new layer of regulatory friction.
Because governments naturally want to control the flow of programmable fiat across their borders.
Exactly. It's a very delicate balancing act.
And beyond the macroeconomic hurdles, we also have to look at the ground-level reality of market readiness. Visa, providing a CLI, is brilliant for developers, but the vast majority of small to medium-sized businesses are operating on legacy web architecture.
Oh, absolutely. Their inventory systems are barely optimized for mobile browsers, let alone built to receive command line instructions from AI proxies.
Right. So the transition is inevitably going to create a massive divide between highly optimized, agent-ready mega retailers and local merchants who still rely on human-centric discovery.
And we can't ignore the labor implications of that transition. The mass automation of customer service, sales funnels, and procurement logistics will displace a significant amount of traditional retail and entry-level B2B roles.
Though the economic counterargument from the sources is that this displacement forces a massive labor shift toward new sectors.
Yes, specifically roles in agent development, behavioral parameter auditing, and managing those human-in-the-loop exception workflows we talked about.
So the workforce pivots from doing the purchasing to managing the machines that do the purchasing.
Exactly.
So synthesizing the core trajectory of the data we've covered today. The era of AI acting purely as a conversational assistant is officially ending.
It really is.
The infrastructure to support autonomous financial action is already live, it's piloted, and it's scaling. Visa, OpenAI, and others are turning 2026 into the launch pad for mainstream agentic commerce. They've fundamentally altered the plumbing of the internet, replacing human friction with tokenized smart contracts and machine-readable APIs.
We are transitioning from an era defined by manual decision fatigue into an era where consumers and businesses deploy fleets of digital proxies to manage their consumption. The technological hurdles of security and authentication have largely been solved by frameworks like the Trusted Agent Protocol. The remaining hurdles are entirely regulatory and behavioral.
So the $5 trillion question is no longer can the AI buy the flight? The question is how society adapts to an economy where machines conduct a quarter of all online trade.
If I can give the listener one actionable takeaway from this shift, it's the absolute necessity of active oversight. Do not get left behind, but approach these tools with meticulous parameter control.
Start small.
Yes, start small. Treat the configuration of your AI's purchasing limits, its data access, and its behavioral boundaries with the exact same level of scrutiny you apply to your primary bank account. Demand granular transparency from the platforms you use regarding how their algorithms define a recommended purchase. Test autonomous behavior on low-stakes, easily reversible transactions first.
That granular control is definitely going to be the most vital skill for the modern consumer. But I want to leave you with one final puzzle to mull over. Something that builds on everything we've discussed today, but forces us to look at the exact opposite end of the transaction.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing how agentic commerce changes the mechanics of buying. But if you flip the script, what happens to the entire concept of selling?
Oh, wow. You're looking at the foundational collapse of traditional marketing.
Exactly. If human consumers are entirely replaced by AI agents that do all the sourcing, cross-referencing, and negotiating in the background, how does a company actually sell a product? The entire advertising industry, from billion-dollar Super Bowl commercials to targeted social media influencers, is built on manipulating human psychology.
Yeah, Coca-Cola spends a fortune to make you feel a sense of nostalgia or excitement when you see a red can.
But an autonomous agent doesn't feel nostalgia. It cannot be influenced by a celebrity endorsement, and it does not care about the aesthetic design of a billboard.
No, it really doesn't.
The buyer they are trying to influence is a completely emotionless algorithm that only cares about structured data, verified supply chain metrics, price per ounce ratios, and cryptographic trust protocols. So how do you brand a product when the entity making the purchasing decision literally cannot perceive the brand?
That is a wild thought.
The entire paradigm of persuasion, which has driven consumer economics for a century, suddenly has zero impact on the entity actually holding the wallet. It fundamentally rewrites what it means to take a product to market. It's something to think about. Until next time, keep questioning the world around you.